We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, now in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM, and across this great nation 3 times a week on the Internet through knuckmedia.com. So, great interview with Brian Johnson. I really appreciate his perspective on the national.
Yeah, Brian's got a lot of information, and I'm really looking forward to the guest we have right now.
Yes, I am. A gentleman we've had on the show before who wrote a fascinating new book that I can't wait to get my hands on, Power Grab, Obama's Plan for a One-Party Nation. Political consultant,
Right.
Dick Morris. Dick, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Hey, good to be here, Marty. Yeah, it's Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation. I'm sorry we hadn't sent it out to you. We should have.
Well, it's funny. I've been reading excerpts of it, and I do a lot of books on tape, and every day I've been checking it, and it's not on Audible yet, so I can't wait for that to happen. But that's a scary premise to your book, and the sad thing is you can see it happening.
Yeah, I think that his goal, which you will appreciate living in a Republican area of a Democratic state, is to make the whole country like California, where it's a one-party state, and the other party really has no ability to control anything. And I think that we misunderstand Obama's motivation. We think that his means are his ends, but socialized medicine and income redistribution and government control are all means. The end is one-party left-wing domination for decades over American politics. And I think he has 3 main ways of achieving it: immigration, subsidy, and coercion. You start with immigration. He's doing everything he possibly can to change the demographics of the electorate so that they're democratic demographics. And so, for example, he just yesterday, sent out invitations to 100,000 Haitians, inviting them to come to the United States and migrate here to join their relatives who are already here, and they would then be legal immigrants. He just, a few weeks ago, invited 100,000 Syrian refugees, largely Muslim, to come to the United States, and the year before, 100,000 Iraqi refugees.
Dick, this week they're issuing 2 million California driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Oh, really? Wow. And printing up 34 million green cards for the next few years. But part of this, of course, is that right after Election Day, he's going to issue an executive order ending deportations. And when you put that together with the voting laws, you see what he's trying to do. The Justice Department has advised all registrars of voters that if someone has not voted or has not returned the postcards, he may not be stricken from the voter rolls for 4 years, which means you have millions of dead people on the voting rolls and tens of millions of people who've moved. And when you combine that with a ban on photo ID requirements, you have a magnificent opportunity for voter fraud. And North Carolina just did a survey, a study, and found out that in 2012, 35,000 North Carolinians voted, but people of the same name and same birth date, and in 8,000 cases the same Social Security numbers, in the others they didn't have numbers, cast votes in other states in that same year. So what happens is that Dick Morris is registered to vote in Bakersfield, and he moves to North Carolina. But Bakersfield can't cut him off the rolls. Even if he tells them he moved and said, please delete me, you're not allowed to do it for 4 years. So an illegal immigrant comes in and says, I'm Dick Morris, I'm here to vote. And there's no photo ID, so there's nothing to prove that he's not. And the documentation is at least 35,000 votes, probably twice that number because the survey only involved 26 other states, did that, voted in another state and in North Carolina. And then to make this even more horrific, he wants to eliminate the Electoral College so that the popular vote, thusly finagled, will choose the next president. And he's not planning to do that by the normal method of amending the Constitution, not consulting Congress, not asking 3/4 of the states. Instead, he's going to a small number of Democratic states, probably ultimately about 21 of them, and saying, please pass a law saying that the electors from our state are not going to be bound by the vote of our state, but will vote for the winner of the national popular vote. And he so far has 11 states with 165 electoral votes who've passed this, including California. And once he gets up to 271 electoral votes, a majority of the Electoral College, it'll become a fait accompli. So if Oregon, for example, passes it, I think they may have already, and it goes Republican one year, which it well might, the Oregon electors will vote for the winner of the national popular vote, even if it's the Democrat. So that's one part. His whole goal is to change the demographics and use the illegal immigrant population to steal elections in America.
And you can see it happening. We're having a conversation with political consultant Dick Morris. I get the feeling, Dick, that Mayor Daley is alive and well in Chicago still.
Yeah, he sure is. He sure is.
Yeah, you made a comment.
Although Mayor Emanuel is no slouch.
No.
But and I think the second part of this is subsidy. Mm-hmm. We think that he wants to extend subsidies for income redistribution and stuff. That's just a means to an end. In fact, what he wants to do is to make everyone dependent on Washington. So when you take Medicaid, food stamps, disability, and welfare,
unemployment,
it comes to 105 million people. When he took office, it was 70 million. That's 35 million new people on whom Washington has a hold. And I think the purpose of Obamacare is more insidious than just socialized medicine. Mm-hmm. I think his purpose is to make a middle-class entitlement that will capture people that otherwise would not depend on Washington. Because he goes to middle-income people who are happily supporting themselves, not getting subsidies, and paying for their own health insurance. And he says, oh, no, that health insurance plan is inadequate. It doesn't cover sex change. It doesn't cover mammographies. It doesn't cover substance abuse. But I'm a 60-year-old single guy. Nope, you're not allowed. You have to take a government-approved plan. But I can't afford it. Don't worry, we'll subsidize it. And all of a sudden we have another voter to add to that 105 million.
But what about the situation where the states that had a federal exchange don't qualify for a subsidy, and they voted that they can't have a subsidy, but it hasn't been imposed yet?
Well, that case is pending in the courts, and I think it's going to be the death of Obamacare.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I hope you're right.
I think that. Yeah, I am too. But the clause here is in the law. It says you may only get a subsidy through the state exchanges. But Washington has been ignoring that and taking people in 36 states that only have federal exchanges and giving them Obamacare benefits. Now, the various plaintiffs sued in 4 different states. And in D.C. and Richmond, they'll say it's okay.
Right.
But in Oklahoma and probably Indiana, they're saying, no, it's not. And that's going to go to the Supreme Court. And my bet is that in the Supreme Court, Roberts and Kennedy will be the swing judges, will say, hey, we didn't want to throw out Obamacare. We didn't want to make it unconstitutional. But all we're doing here is reading the statute and enforcing it, which we just won't read language into it that isn't there. And I think it's very possible that ends Obamacare. But let me just make my final point about the book. Mm-hmm. I think the other element here is coercion. He wants to force people to abandon the Republican Party, or at least not give it money. Part of it is the auditing of conservative groups by the IRS. Part of it is climate change. I think that one of the goals of climate change, which you understand so well in California because of the predatory air resources board you have, is to make it almost impossible to operate a farm or a power plant or a manufacturing business or a trucking business without waivers from the EPA. Because the natural gas rule, the greenhouse gas rules are so extensive and so draconian that everybody needs a waiver. It's like the old days in the Middle Ages where everyone needed a papal indulgence in order to sin. And I think that EPA will refuse to grant the waivers to Republican firms, but will to Democratic firms.
Yeah, you can see that one coming. Yeah.
Another example of that is that he just issued an executive order requiring all federal contractors to reveal all of their political donations, even though some of them don't have to under the law. But that's to make sure that none of them give to the Republican Party, because they'll lose their government contracts.
Yeah, that's scary. When we come back from the break, Dick, I want to talk a little bit more about other aspects of the book. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.